Greetings and salutations. Welcome to Harryverse X. We are thrilled to present today's story. What if Geralt and Ciri found Harry at age 4 and the Witcher raised a monster-hunting wizard with elder blood? If these stories bring joy to your day, please consider liking and subscribing. Every bit of support helps us continue this passion project. Now, prepare yourself for an amazing tale. Chapter 1, The Child of Lightning and Wolves. Ciri woke up screaming, her nightmare still clinging to her like a wraith. Sweat drenched her ashen hair as she gasped for breath in the darkness of her room at Kaer Morhen. The vision had been so clear, a small boy with a lightning scar, locked in a cupboard, crying silently as his magic built up around him like a storm about to break. Fuck, she muttered, pushing tangled hair from her eyes. The dream had felt different from her usual nightmares. It carried the unmistakable weight of destiny. Heavy footsteps pounded up the stone stairs, and her door burst open. Geralt stood there, sword in hand, yellow eyes gleaming in the darkness. "What is it?" he demanded, scanning the room for threats. "A vision," Ciri said, her voice steadying as she regained control. "Not the wild hunt. Something new." Geralt lowered his sword but didn't sheath it. "Tell me." "A boy. Younger than I was when you found me. Someone's hurting him." She closed her eyes, trying to recapture details. "He's got magic, Geralt. Strong magic. And something else." Her emerald eyes snapped open. "Elder blood. Like mine." Geralt's expression didn't change, but his grip tightened on his sword hilt. "You sure?" "Yes. And he's not in our world. He's somewhere else. Somewhere I could reach." Geralt finally sheathed his sword. "Yennefer arrives tomorrow. We'll talk to her." Ciri shook her head fiercely. "No. We need to go now. He doesn't have time." "Ciri, I saw what they did to him." Her voice cracked. "These people, they're not family to him. They're jailers. They locked him in a fucking cupboard, Geralt. A cupboard. 4 days." The Witcher's face hardened. Few things angered him more than cruelty to children. "You can find him. Through the worlds." Ciri nodded. "I can feel him. Like a beacon." "Then we leave at dawn," Geralt said. "Pack light. Bring your sword." Vernon Dursley prided himself on being perfectly normal, thank you very much. So when he opened his front door on Privet Drive to find a white-haired man with cat eyes and a sword on his back standing beside a young woman with a vicious scar on her face, he nearly had a heart attack. "What the devil do you want?" he spluttered, his mustache quivering with indignation. Geralt stared at the large man blocking the doorway. He'd seen nicer trolls. "The boy," he said flatly. "We've come for the boy." Vernon's face went from red to purple. "There's no boy here. Now get off my property before I call the police." He tried to slam the door, but Geralt's boot was already in the gap. "Don't lie to me," the Witcher growled. "I can hear his heartbeat." Ciri slipped past them both, darting under Vernon's arm with preternatural speed. "Stop her." Vernon bellowed, but Geralt simply shoved him back, sending the large man stumbling into his perfectly ordinary hallway. Ciri followed the sound of a tiny, frightened heartbeat to a cupboard under the stairs. A small padlock held it shut. She drew her sword and smashed the lock with the pommel. The door cracked open, and the stench of unwashed body and soiled sheets hit her nostrils. Inside, a tiny boy with wild black hair and brilliant green eyes stared up at her. He couldn't have been more than 4 years old, swimming in clothes 5 times too big, his face gaunt with hunger. A lightning-shaped scar stood out livid on his forehead. "Hello," Ciri said gently, kneeling down. "My name's Ciri. I'm here to take you away from this place. Would you like that?" The boy didn't speak, just stared at her with those incredible eyes, so like her own. A woman's shriek came from behind her. "What are you doing in my house?" Ciri turned to see a horse-faced woman frozen in horror at the sight of her. Beyond her, Geralt had Vernon pinned against the wall, forearm across his throat. "What's his name?" Ciri demanded of the woman. You can't just, his name." Ciri's voice cracked like a whip. "Harry," the woman whispered. "Harry Potter." Ciri turned back to the boy. "Harry? Would you like to come with me? I promise no one will hurt you again." Harry still didn't speak, but his tiny hand reached out tentatively toward Ciri's. The moment their fingers touched, a spark of magic jolted between them. Ciri gasped. There was no doubt now, this child shared her blood, her power. "Geralt," she called. "We need to go. Now." Vernon's face had passed purple and was heading toward blue as Geralt's arm pressed against his windpipe. The Witcher released him suddenly, and Vernon collapsed, gasping for air. "If you follow us," Geralt said quietly, "I'll kill you." The simple, matter-of-fact way he said it made Vernon believe every word. He stayed on the floor, clutching his throat as Geralt joined Ciri at the cupboard. The Witcher's expression softened slightly as he looked at the small boy. "Hello, Harry. I'm Geralt." Harry's eyes widened at the sight of Geralt's yellow eyes and white hair. But instead of fear, there was fascination in his gaze. "Cat," Harry whispered, his first word since they arrived. The corner of Geralt's mouth twitched. "Close enough. Let's go." Ciri lifted Harry gently. He weighed almost nothing. She settled him against her hip, and he clung to her like a monkey, burying his face in her neck. "Wait." The horse-faced woman called. "You can't take him. He's my sister's son. He's supposed to stay here. For protection." Geralt turned slowly. "Protection?" He gestured at the cupboard. "You call this protection? There are things you don't understand," the woman insisted. "Dangerous people looking for him." "Let them come," Geralt said. "We'll be ready." As they stepped outside into the unnaturally tidy garden, a fat boy around Harry's age stood staring, an ice cream melting down his hand. "Dad," he called uncertainly. Inside, "Dudley," the woman hissed, pulling her son behind her. Ciri felt Harry tense in her arms. She stroked his back gently. "It's okay, little cub. You're safe now." They walked to the end of the street where Ciri had emerged from her portal hours earlier. As they reached the spot, the front door of number 4 burst open again, and Vernon charged out, brandishing a shotgun. "Put the freak down," he roared. Ciri turned to Geralt. "Take him." Geralt gathered Harry into his arms. The boy went willingly, seeming to sense that the scary-looking man with cat eyes meant him no harm. Vernon raised the shotgun, but never got to fire. Ciri moved faster than the eye could follow, crossing the distance between them in a blink. There was a flash of steel, and Vernon screamed as the shotgun fell to the ground, along with 2 of his fingers. "I told you I wouldn't let anyone hurt him again," Ciri said coldly. She sheathed her sword and rejoined Geralt and Harry. Harry was watching Vernon howl on the ground, his green eyes wide but dry. "No tears," Geralt noted. "As if he'd cried them all out long ago." "Ready?" Ciri asked, taking Geralt's hand. "Do it," Geralt nodded. Ciri closed her eyes, focusing on the power in her blood. A shimmering portal opened before them, crackling with emerald energy. "Hold on tight," Geralt murmured to Harry, who responded by gripping the Witcher's leather armor with surprising strength. They stepped through the portal, leaving Privet Drive behind forever. The first week at Kaer Morhen was the hardest. Harry barely spoke, startled at loud noises, and flinched whenever anyone raised a hand near him. He ate like he expected the food to be taken away at any moment, stuffing bread into his pockets when he thought no one was looking. Vesemir, the oldest Witcher and master of Kaer Morhen, watched the boy with keen eyes. "He's got the look of a whipped dog," he told Geralt as they chopped wood in the courtyard. But there's steel underneath. And power. I know, Geralt grunted, swinging his axe. It's not like our magic. No, Vesemir agreed. It's focused differently. Ciri's right, though, there's elder blood in him. You can see it in how he moves sometimes. That unnatural grace. Like he's not fully bound to the earth. Geralt set down his axe. He had a nightmare last night. Made all the candles in the room burst into flame. Vesemir ran a hand through his grey beard. Powerful, untrained, and traumatized. Dangerous combination. He's just a boy. So were you, once. Vesemir fixed Geralt with a pointed look. He needs training. Structure. And not just in magic. The path could give him purpose. Geralt's jaw tightened. No mutations. No, Vesemir agreed. His body wouldn't survive them, with that foreign magic in him. But the training? The discipline? That he needs. A small sound made them both turn. Harry stood at the edge of the courtyard, watching them with those unervingly intense green eyes. He still wore clothes Ciri had cut down from her own wardrobe, a simple tunic and trousers that finally fit him properly. Hey, Geralt called. Hungry? Harry nodded slightly. Come help us finish this wood, and then we'll eat. Harry approached cautiously. Geralt handed him a small piece of wood and showed him where to stack it. The boy worked diligently, carrying pieces barely within his strength. Good job, Geralt said when they finished. He hesitated, then awkwardly ruffled Harry's hair. Harry froze at the touch, then leaned into it ever so slightly. Progress, Geralt thought. At night, Ciri often found Harry standing at his window, staring up at the stars as if trying to memorize them. She joined him, sometimes telling stories of constellations or adventures she'd had. Did you know, she said one night, that I was scared too when I first came here? Harry looked at her skeptically. It's true, Ciri insisted. I thought Geralt was terrifying. And I missed my grandmother so much it hurt. You had a grandmother? Harry asked quietly. Yes. She raised me. I don't remember anyone, Harry said. Except Aunt Petunia and Uncle Vernon. Ciri's heart ached. Your parents died when you were very little. In a car crash, Harry nodded. Ciri frowned. Something about that didn't seem right, but she said nothing. Is Geralt scary? Harry asked suddenly. Ciri smiled. Only to monsters. And people who hurt children. He has cat eyes. He's a witcher. The mutations give him special abilities to fight monsters. What's a witcher? Monster hunters, Ciri explained. They travel the path, taking contracts to kill dangerous creatures and protect people. Harry considered this. Are you a witcher too? Not exactly. I'm training to be one. But I have different abilities. She lowered her voice conspiratorially. I think you might have some of the same ones. Me? That's why we found you. I felt your magic calling to mine. Harry's eyes widened. I don't have magic. Uncle Vernon said, your uncle, Ciri said firmly, is an idiot. And cruel. Nothing he told you was true. Harry fell silent, processing this. Finally, he asked, can I be a witcher too? Ciri smiled. We'll see. First, you need to get stronger. And learn to control your magic. How? We'll help you. That's why we brought you here. Ciri gently touched his lightning scar. Do you know how you got this? Harry shook his head. It's a magical mark. Like mine. She pointed to her own face, with its distinctive scar. It means you're special. Harry touched his scar thoughtfully. Uncle Vernon hated it. Another reason he was an idiot, Ciri said firmly. For the first time since they'd brought him to Kaer Morhen, Harry smiled, a small, cautious thing, but a smile nonetheless. 3 weeks after Harry's arrival, Yennefer of Vengerberg came to Kaer Morhen. The sorceress swept in with her usual dramatic flair, bringing trunks of supplies and an air of barely contained impatience. "Where is the child?" she demanded almost before greeting Geralt. Geralt nodded toward the training yard, where Harry was watching Ciri practice sword forms with rapt attention. Yennefer studied the small boy from a distance. "Interesting," she murmured. "His aura is unusual. The magic doesn't flow like ours. It's more concentrated. Can you help him control it?" Geralt asked. "Perhaps." Yennefer straightened her black dress. "Introduce us." Geralt led her to the training yard. Harry spotted them coming and immediately shrank behind Ciri's legs. "Harry," Geralt called. "This is Yennefer. She's going to help you learn about your magic." Harry peered around Ciri at the intimidating woman with violet eyes and raven-black hair. Yennefer, to her credit, knelt down to his level. "Hello, Harry," she said, her voice gentler than Geralt had expected. "I hear you've been setting things on fire." Harry looked alarmed. "I didn't mean to." "Of course not," Yennefer assured him. "That's why I'm here. To help you learn to control it." She held out her hand, palm up, and a small flame appeared, dancing on her skin. "See? Magic can be beautiful when you master it." Harry stared, entranced. "Can I do that?" "Let's find out." Yennefer extended her hand. After a moment's hesitation, Harry took it. The instant their hands connected, a surge of energy crackled through the air. Yennefer gasped, snatching her hand back. "What happened?" Geralt demanded, stepping forward. Yennefer stared at Harry with new respect. "Power," she said simply. "Raw, untamed power." "Is that bad?" Harry asked in a small voice. "No," Yennefer assured him. "Just unexpected. Your magic is different from ours, but no less potent." She looked at Geralt. "He needs training, urgently. Before he hurts himself or others accidentally." That evening, Yennefer conducted tests to gauge Harry's abilities. She set various objects before him, feathers, candles, small stones, and asked him to focus on them. Results were mixed. Sometimes nothing happened. Other times, objects exploded or flew across the room. Once, a feather transformed into a bird that flew around the great hall before vanishing in a puff of smoke. His magic responds to emotion, Yennefer concluded later as she and Geralt shared wine by the fire. Fear, anger, joy, they all trigger different effects. He needs to learn discipline. He's 4, Geralt pointed out. A 4-year-old who could bring this castle down around our ears if he has a tantrum, Yennefer countered. I'll start with meditation. Emotional control. The rest can wait until he's older. Geralt nodded. And the elder blood? Ciri's convinced he shares her lineage. Yennefer swirled her wine thoughtfully. It's possible. The ability to traverse worlds runs in certain bloodlines. But there's something else. She hesitated. That scar. It's not just a scar, Geralt. It contains dark magic. Old magic. Geralt's expression darkened. What kind of dark magic? I'm not sure yet. But it's connected to him somehow. To his nightmares. Can you remove it? Yennefer shook her head. Not without potentially killing him. It's too deeply embedded. For now, we watch and wait. As spring turned to summer, Harry began to flourish at Kaer Morhen. Daily meditation with Yennefer helped him gain rudimentary control over his magic. He no longer set things ablaze when startled, though levitation still happened when he laughed too hard. Geralt began teaching him basic physical training, exercises to build strength in his small frame, games that improved coordination and balance. Harry took to it all with determination that surprised even Vesemir. "He's a worker, that one," the old witcher commented as Harry doggedly climbed the wall Geralt had set as a challenge, falling again and again but always getting back up. "Reminds me of you at that age." Geralt grunted noncommittally, but pride flickered in his yellow eyes. Harry's nightmares continued, though less frequently. On bad nights, Ciri would wake to his cries and find him clutching his scar, which sometimes bled and burned to the touch. She would sit with him, telling stories until he fell asleep again. One night, after a particularly bad dream, Harry asked her, "Are there monsters in the other world too?" "Where I came from?" "Every world has monsters," Ciri told him honestly. "Some look like beasts, some look like people." "Like Uncle Vernon?" "Yes. Like him." Harry was quiet for a moment. "In my dream, there was a monster with red eyes. And green light. And someone was screaming." Ciri felt a chill run down her spine. "Just a nightmare," she said, though she wasn't convinced. "Try to sleep now." But later, she told Geralt about Harry's dream. "There's something not right about his past. The car crash story doesn't add up. That scar was made by powerful magic." "I know," Geralt agreed. "But for now, he's safe here. We'll deal with his past when he's ready." Harry's first real encounter with a monster came sooner than anyone expected. Nearly 6 months after his arrival, he was gathering herbs with Ciri in the forest below Kaer Morhen when a commotion erupted nearby. "Stay here," Ciri ordered, drawing her sword. Harry nodded, crouching behind a fallen log. Ciri disappeared into the trees, moving silently. Minutes passed. Harry listened intently, hearing distant sounds of fighting. Then, silence. More minutes ticked by. Harry's heart pounded. Where was Ciri? A rustling came from behind him. Harry turned, expecting to see Ciri returning. Instead, a necker, a small but vicious humanoid monster, burst from the underbrush, its claws extended toward Harry's face. Harry screamed, throwing up his hands instinctively. A pulse of magic erupted from his palms, sending the necker flying backward. It hit a tree with a sickening crack but immediately scrambled back to its feet, snarling. Harry looked around frantically for a weapon. His hand closed around a fallen branch just as the necker charged again. With strength born of terror, Harry swung the branch. It connected with the monster's head, stunning it momentarily. But the necker was faster than Harry expected. It recovered quickly, lunging and catching Harry's arm with its claws. Pain lanced through him. Harry cried out, stumbling backward. The necker advanced, sensing victory. In that moment, something strange happened. Time seemed to slow around Harry. The necker moved as if through honey. Harry felt his magic surge within him, different from before, focused, directed. Without conscious thought, Harry pointed at the necker and shouted a word that came from nowhere, "Stop." The necker froze mid-lunge, suspended in the air. Harry stared in shock. The creature's eyes darted frantically, but it couldn't move a muscle. That's how Geralt found them moments later, Harry bleeding but standing firm, the necker floating paralyzed before him. "Harry!" Geralt called, sword already drawn. The sound broke Harry's concentration. The necker dropped to the ground, released from the spell. Before it could attack again, Geralt's sword separated its head from its body. Geralt rushed to Harry, kneeling to examine his wounded arm. "Where's Ciri?" "Fighting," Harry gasped. "Other monsters." As if summoned by her name, Ciri burst from the trees, her sword bloody, a cut across her cheek. "Harry! Are you—" She stopped, seeing the dead necker. "What happened?" "He defended himself," Geralt said, tearing a strip from his shirt to bind Harry's wound. "With magic." Ciri looked at Harry with newfound respect. "You killed it?" "No," Harry shook his head. "I just stopped it. Froze it." Geralt and Ciri exchanged glances. That type of magic, stopping time, wasn't common in their world. "Let's get back to the keep," Geralt said, lifting Harry carefully. "Yennefer needs to look at that arm. And hear about what you did." Harry leaned against Geralt's chest, suddenly exhausted. "Did I do good?" Geralt's arm tightened around him. "You did very good. You're a brave boy, Harry." The pride in Geralt's voice was worth more than all the praise Harry had never received in his short life. The incident with the Necker marked a turning point. Yennefer intensified Harry's magical training, focusing on harnessing his instinctive abilities. Geralt began teaching him about monsters, how to identify different species, their weaknesses, how to track them. Harry absorbed it all with enthusiasm. For the first time, he had purpose. People who cared for him. A place where he belonged. On his 5th birthday, a date they'd had to guess at, since the Dursleys had never celebrated it, Geralt presented Harry with his first silver dagger. "Too young for a sword," the Witcher said gruffly. "But this will serve for now." Harry held the small weapon reverently. "Thank you," he whispered. Later that night, after Harry had fallen asleep clutching his new dagger, the adults gathered in the Great Hall. "He's progressing faster than I expected," Yennefer admitted. "His magic is adaptable. He combines our techniques with his own instinctive abilities." "What about the nightmares?" Geralt asked. "The scar?" Yennefer's expression sobered. "They're connected to his original world. I'm certain of it now. Something, or someone, left a magical imprint on him. It acts almost like a beacon. Could something follow it? Find him here?" Ciri asked, concern etching her features. "Possibly," Yennefer said. "But not easily. Your power brought him across worlds, Ciri. It would take considerable magic to trace that path." "We should be prepared regardless," Vesemir interjected. "The boy has potential to be extraordinary. A Witcher with wizard's magic and elder blood, he could face threats we've never encountered." "He needs more than training," Ciri said suddenly. "He needs a family. Security. Love." She looked directly at Geralt. "He needs a father." Geralt didn't answer immediately. Being responsible for Ciri had changed him. Taking on Harry as well. But he thought of the small boy upstairs, who tried so hard at every task, who never complained despite the nightmares and pain, who looked at Geralt with trust that humbled the old Witcher. "I'll do the ritual tomorrow," he said finally. "The law of surprise already brought him to us. Might as well make it official." The adoption ritual was simple by Witcher standards. At dawn, Geralt took Harry to the highest tower of Kaer Morhen. They stood facing the rising sun, the valley spread before them like a green carpet. "Harry," Geralt said solemnly. "Do you choose to walk the path? To learn the ways of the Witcher, to protect the innocent, to fight monsters in all their forms?" Harry's small face was serious. "I do." "And do you accept me as your teacher, your guide, and your father in all but blood?" Harry's eyes widened at the word father. He nodded vigorously. "I do." Geralt knelt before him, yellow eyes level with green. "Then I, Geralt of Rivia, take you as my son. Your enemies are my enemies. Your path is my path. From this day until my last day." With ceremonial precision, Geralt pricked his thumb with a silver needle. He gestured for Harry to do the same. Their blood mingled as they pressed their thumbs together. "Blood of my blood," Geralt intoned. "Though not born of my line, you are now of my heart." A pulse of magic, warm and golden, surrounded them briefly. Harry gasped as he felt something settle into place inside him, like a key turning in a lock. "It's done," Geralt said, rising. "Your family now, officially." Harry stared up at him, eyes shining. Then, without warning, he launched himself at Geralt, small arms wrapping around the Witcher's waist. "Thank you," he whispered against Geralt's leather armor. After a moment's hesitation, Geralt's arms closed around the boy. His boy now. Come on, he said gruffly, hiding the emotion in his voice. Training starts in an hour. And Ciri's making your favorite breakfast. Hand in hand, father and son descended from the tower to begin their new life together. Chapter 2, Blood and Magic, left. Harry. Now strike. Geralt's commands rang out across the training yard as Harry, now 10 years old, danced around the practice dummy with his silver sword. 6 years at Kaer Morhen had transformed the frightened, malnourished child into a lean, quick boy with reflexes that sometimes startled even the Witchers. Harry feinted right, then slashed left, his blade whistling through the air. The wooden dummy's arms spun off, clattering across the stones. Better, Geralt grunted, arms folded across his chest. But you telegraphed the feint. A real opponent would have gutted you. Harry wiped sweat from his forehead, pushing back unruly black hair that refused to stay tied back. Let me try again. Geralt shook his head. That's enough swordplay for today. Yennefer's waiting for you in the tower. Magic lessons. Harry groaned. Can't I go hunting with you instead? You promised to show me how to track a griffin. Tomorrow, Geralt promised. Assuming you don't blow up Yennefer's workroom again. That was one time. Harry protested, but his green eyes sparkled with mischief. As Harry sheathed his sword, a short blade, perfectly balanced for his size, Geralt ruffled his hair. The casual affection still surprised Harry sometimes, even after 6 years. He leaned into it briefly before pulling away with the self-consciousness of approaching adolescence. Go on, Geralt nudged him. Don't keep Yen waiting. You know how she gets. Harry sprinted across the courtyard, his movements fluid and precise. The Witcher training had given him grace that most 10-year-olds lacked. As he ran, he passed Vesemir, who was instructing newer Witcher trainees, orphans and children of surprise that occasionally found their way to Kaer Morhen. Harry waved but didn't stop. Making Yennefer wait was never wise. In the 6 years since rescuing Harry from the Dursleys, Kaer Morhen had gradually transformed. What had once been a crumbling, half-abandoned fortress was now a bustling training ground. More Witchers returned between contracts, bringing stories and knowledge. More children trained in the yard. The old keep had life again. And at the center of it all was Harry, the strange boy with 2 types of magic in his blood and a lightning scar on his forehead. Yennefer's workshop occupied the highest tower of Kaer Morhen, its windows facing north to catch the clearest light. When Harry entered, slightly out of breath from running up the spiral staircase, he found the sorceress bent over an ancient text, her raven hair falling in sheets around her face. You're late, she said without looking up. Sorry, Yen. Training with Geralt went long. Yennefer straightened, violet eyes assessing him. You're filthy. Clean up before we begin. Harry obediently went to the basin of water in the corner and washed his face and hands. Over the years, he'd learned there was no point arguing with Yennefer about cleanliness. What are we working on today? He asked, drying himself on a linen cloth. Control, Yennefer said, setting aside her book. Your raw power continues to grow, but your precision needs work. She gestured to a row of candles on the table. 10 of them, spaced evenly apart. Light the 3rd, 7th, and 9th candles. Only those 3. Harry took a deep breath and focused. In the early days, his magic had been purely instinctual, bursting out in moments of fear or anger. Under Yennefer's tutelage, he'd learned to channel it deliberately, though with varying degrees of success. He extended his hand toward the candles, concentrating on the specific ones Yennefer had indicated. He visualized their wicks igniting, just those 3, no others. Incendio, he whispered, using one of the Latin words that helped him focus his intent. The 3rd candle flared to life. Then the 7th. Then the 9th. Harry grinned triumphantly, before the fifth candle suddenly burst into a foot-high flame. "Shit!" Harry exclaimed. Yennefer raised an eyebrow at his language but calmly waved her hand, extinguishing the excess flame. "Better than last week," she admitted. "But still lacking precision." Harry's shoulders slumped slightly. "I don't understand why it's so hard. Your magic seems so controlled." "Because our magic comes from different sources," Yennefer explained, not unkindly. "The magic of this world, what we call chaos, flows like a river. We learn to direct that flow, to become conduits. But yours..." She hesitated. "Yours is internal. More concentrated. It comes from within you rather than from the world around you." "Because I'm from another world?" Harry asked. "Partly," Yennefer agreed. "Though Ciri's magic is a blend of both, due to her elder blood. As is yours, though in different proportions." She picked up a small wooden box from her desk. "I've been saving this for when you were ready. I think that time has come." Harry eyed the box curiously. Yennefer wasn't one for unnecessary gifts. She opened it to reveal a slender piece of wood, polished to a high shine and carved with intricate runes. "What is it?" Harry asked, though something in him already recognized the object. "A wand," Yennefer said. "From your world. Ciri found it for me, in one of her travels between dimensions." Harry's eyes widened. "People use these for magic where I come from?" "Yes. They're focal points, tools to channel and direct magical energy." Yennefer held out the box. "Try it." Hesitantly, Harry reached for the wand. The moment his fingers touched the wood, warmth spread up his arm. He lifted it, feeling a strange rightness to the weight and balance. "Wave it," Yennefer instructed. Harry did, and a stream of red and gold sparks erupted from the tip, dancing around the room like fireflies. He laughed in delight. "I thought so," Yennefer murmured. "It responds to you. Your native magic recognizes its purpose." She pointed to the candles again. "Now try the exercise with the wand." Harry pointed the wand at the candles, focusing as before. Incendio. This time, the 3 designated candles lit instantly, with perfect, controlled flames. None of the others so much as flickered. Harry stared in amazement. That was easy. "The wand is a crutch," Yennefer cautioned, "but a useful one. In your world, few wizards learn to perform magic without them. Here, you'll learn both methods. The wand for precision, wandless magic for situations where you need raw power or don't have your tool." Harry nodded, still gazing at the wand with fascination. "Does this mean I'm really a wizard? Not a witcher?" "You're both," Yennefer said firmly. "And neither. You're Harry of Kaer Morhen, son of Geralt of Rivia. You forge your own path." Harry grinned. He liked that answer. That night, as they ate dinner in the Great Hall, Harry proudly showed his wand to Ciri and Geralt, demonstrating small spells Yennefer had taught him. "Wingardium Leviosa," he intoned, pointing at a goblet. It rose smoothly into the air, hovering at eye level. "Impressive," Ciri smiled. "Though I've seen you levitate heavier objects without a wand." "But not with this control," Harry countered, making the goblet perform a perfect figure-8 before setting it gently back on the table. "Yen says the wand helps channel the magic more precisely." Geralt watched with a mixture of pride and concern. "Just don't rely on it too much. In a real fight, you might lose it." "I know," Harry nodded seriously. "That's why we're practicing both ways." As they continued eating, Geralt and Ciri exchanged glances over Harry's head. They discussed this moment many times, when to tell Harry more about his origins, about the world he'd come from. Yennefer's introduction of the wand had accelerated their timeline. "Harry," Ciri said casually, "how would you like to come with me on a trip tomorrow? Instead of the griffin hunt?" Harry looked up in surprise. "What kind of trip?" A special one. Between worlds. She tapped her cheek, where her scar matched his insignificance if not in shape. To see a bit of where you came from. Harry's fork clattered to his plate. Really? You take me there? Ciri nodded. Just to look. Not to stay. But the Griffin hunt, Harry looked torn. We'll still be there when you get back, Geralt finished for him. This is important, Harry. To understand where you come from. Both your magics. Harry chewed his lip, a habit that emerged when he was thinking deeply. Will we see them? The Dursleys? No, Ciri said firmly. Never them. I was thinking more of places where people like you learn magic. I've been scouting them. There are schools. For magic. Harry's eyes widened. At least one, Ciri confirmed. A castle, not unlike Kaer Morhen, but filled with children learning to be wizards and witches. Harry looked down at his wand, then back up at Ciri and Geralt. I want to go. Just to see. Then it's settled, Ciri said, reaching across to squeeze his hand. Pack light. We leave at dawn. Later, after Harry had gone to bed, Geralt found Ciri on the battlements, staring out at the moonlit mountains. You're sure about this? He asked, joining her at the parapet. No, she admitted. But he needs to know, Geralt. That scar, the nightmares, they're getting worse, not better. Something connects him to that world. Something powerful. Geralt's jaw tightened. His parents didn't die in a car crash, did they? No, Ciri shook her head. There was a war. A magical war. His parents were killed by a dark wizard, the one with red eyes from Harry's nightmares. The one who gave him that scar. And this dark wizard? Is he still alive? I don't know, Ciri admitted. The stories are confused. Some say he died the night he attacked Harry's family. Others believe he's waiting, gathering strength to return. And if he does return? If he comes looking for Harry? Ciri's hand moved to the sword at her hip. Then he'll find that the frightened baby he marked is gone. In his place is a witcher's son, trained to fight monsters. Geralt nodded grimly. Be careful tomorrow. Don't linger in that world too long. I don't like the idea of you two being separated from me if trouble comes. We'll be back before sunset, Ciri promised. Just a quick look. To prepare him for what might come. Dawn found Harry and Ciri in a small clearing below Kaer Morhen. Harry wore his witcher training gear, leather armor over a simple shirt and trousers, his silver dagger at his hip, his wand secured in a special sheath on his forearm that Yennefer had crafted. Ready? Ciri asked, holding out her hand. Harry took a deep breath and nodded, grasping her fingers tightly. What do I do? Just hold on to me, Ciri instructed. And remember, we're only observing. We don't interact with anyone there. It could be dangerous. Because of the dark wizard. The one who killed my parents. Ciri's eyes widened slightly. What do you know about that? Harry shrugged. I hear things. And I dream things. I know my parents didn't die in a crash. I know someone with red eyes killed them. And tried to kill me. He touched his scar. That's what this is, isn't it? Some kind of curse mark. Sometimes Ciri forgot how perceptive Harry was, how much he picked up from fragments of overheard conversations and his own intuition. Yes, she admitted. His name was Voldemort. A powerful, evil wizard. And yes, he gave you that scar when his killing curse somehow failed to kill you. That's why some in your world call you the boy who lived. Is he dead? Voldemort? I don't know, Ciri said honestly. But we're not going anywhere near where he or his followers might be. Just to see the school, Hogwarts, it's called. Harry nodded, his expression serious beyond his years. I'm ready. Ciri closed her eyes, focusing on her power. The air around them began to shimmer with emerald energy as she called on her elder blood. A portal opened before them, not the precise, controlled portal of a sorceress, but the wild, powerful gateway of one who could traverse worlds. Now! Ciri cried, pulling Harry through with her. The sensation was like being pulled apart and reassembled in an instant. Harry gasped as they emerged on the other side, momentarily disoriented. When his vision cleared, he found himself standing with Ciri on a hill overlooking a vast lake. And on the far shore. Wow, Harry breathed. A castle rose against the morning sky, its turrets and towers silhouetted dramatically. Even at this distance, Harry could feel the magic emanating from it, familiar yet different from the magic of Kaer Morhen. Hogwarts School of Witchcraft and Wizardry, Ciri said softly. One of the greatest magical schools in this world. It's huge, Harry marveled. How many students are there? Hundreds, Ciri told him. Children from magical families, and those like you, born to non-magical parents but with power of their own. Would I have gone here? If you hadn't found me? Ciri nodded. When you turned 11, most likely. That's when they send out the letters of acceptance. Harry stared at the castle, trying to imagine a life where he'd never met Geralt or Ciri, never trained as a witcher, never learned to hunt monsters. The thought made him shiver despite the warm morning. Can we get closer? He asked. Ciri hesitated. A little. But we need to stay hidden. There are magical protections around the school that might detect us if we get too close. They made their way down from the hill, skirting the edge of a dark, foreboding forest. Harry noticed Ciri kept one hand near her sword at all times. What's in there? He asked, nodding toward the forest. All manner of creatures, Ciri replied. Some similar to those we hunt, others unique to this world. It's called the Forbidden Forest, and students aren't allowed inside. Harry grinned. Sounds like a challenge. Don't even think about it, Ciri warned, though her lips twitched with amusement. We're just observing today. They found a position behind a large boulder that gave them a better view of the castle grounds. Students in black robes moved between the buildings, carrying books and wands. They all dressed the same, Harry noted. School uniforms, Ciri explained. The different colors indicate their houses, sort of like clans or guilds. Gryffindor, Hufflepuff, Ravenclaw, and Slytherin. How do they decide which house you're in? A magical hat, apparently. It reads your character and places you accordingly. Harry raised an eyebrow. A hat? Seriously? Ciri shrugged. Different worlds, different customs. They watched for nearly an hour as students and teachers went about their morning routines. Harry observed everything with intense interest, the wands, the spells he occasionally glimpsed, the owls delivering mail. They use owls as messengers, he whispered. Like we use ravens at Kaer Morhen. Suddenly, a bell rang from the castle. The students in the grounds began hurrying inside. Class is starting, Ciri murmured. We should go. We've seen enough for today. But as they turned to leave, Harry gasped and clutched his forehead. His scar burned with sudden, searing pain. He stumbled, falling to one knee. Harry. Ciri crouched beside him. What is it? My scar, he hissed through gritted teeth. It's burning. Like fire. Ciri looked around frantically, drawing her sword. We need to go. Now. Wait, Harry grabbed her arm. Something's coming. I can feel it. A rustle in the underbrush behind them confirmed his warning. Ciri spun, sword raised, positioning herself between Harry and the threat. From the forest emerged a creature Harry had never seen before, a black, hooded figure that seemed to float above the ground. The air around it turned cold, frosting the grass beneath it. A rattling sound came from beneath its hood, like the last breath of a dying man. Dementor, Ciri whispered, her voice tight with fear. "Harry, run! Back to the portal point." But Harry couldn't move. As the creature drifted closer, terrible images filled his mind, a woman screaming, green light, high-pitched laughter. His mother dying. The memory he'd buried so deep it only emerged in nightmares was now vividly, painfully present. "Harry!" Ciri's voice seemed to come from far away. The dementor advanced. Ciri slashed at it with her sword, but the blade passed through the creature as if it were smoke. The dementor barely seemed to notice her, its attention fixed on Harry. In desperation, Harry raised his wand, though he had no idea what spell might work against such a creature. But before he could attempt anything, the dementor suddenly halted. It hovered, seemingly confused, its hooded head turning from side to side as if it had lost track of its prey. "It can't sense us properly across worlds," Ciri realized. "Our presence here isn't fully anchored. Come on." She pulled Harry to his feet, and they ran, keeping low to the ground. Behind them, the dementor gave chase, but sluggishly, as if struggling to pinpoint their location. They reached the portal point, gasping for breath. Ciri immediately began summoning her power, the air shimmering around them. The dementor closed in, its rattling breath getting louder. "Hurry!" Harry urged, his scar still burning. The portal opened just as the dementor lunged forward. They leapt through, the creature's cold hand brushing Harry's arm as the portal closed behind them. They tumbled onto the grass below Kaer Morhen, the familiar mountains rising around them. Harry rolled onto his back, gasping for air, the pain in his scar already fading. "What the hell was that thing?" he demanded once he could speak. Ciri sat up, pushing her ashen hair from her face. "A dementor. They guard the wizard prison in your world. They feed on happiness, leaving only despair. And they can suck out your soul with their kiss." Harry shuddered. "Why did it come after us?" "After me?" "I don't know," Ciri admitted, looking troubled. "They're supposed to be under the Ministry of Magic's control. It shouldn't have been near the school." She studied Harry's face. "What did you experience when it came near?" Harry swallowed hard. "I heard my mother screaming. Saw green light. Felt cold. Empty." Ciri's expression softened. She pulled him into a brief, fierce hug. "Dementors force you to relive your worst memories. For you, that would be the night your parents died." Harry pulled away, embarrassed but grateful for the comfort. "My scar hurt right before it appeared. Like it was, warning me." "Your scar connects you to that world somehow," Ciri said. "And possibly to Voldemort himself. Yennefer has suspected it for years." They walked slowly back up the path to Kaer Morhen, both lost in thought. "Ciri?" Harry finally asked. "Do you think he's still alive?" "Voldemort?" Ciri looked down at him, her green eyes, so like his own, serious. "I don't know. But if he is, and if he ever comes for you." She rested her hand on his shoulder. "You won't face him alone." Geralt was waiting for them at the gates of Kaer Morhen, arms crossed, yellow eyes taking in their disheveled appearance instantly. "What happened?" he demanded. "Dementor," Ciri said grimly. "One of the soul suckers from Harry's world. It seemed drawn to him specifically." Geralt's expression darkened. He knelt to Harry's level, examining him with a witcher's keen senses. "You're not hurt." "Just cold," Harry admitted. "And my scar hurt. A lot." Geralt's gloved hand gently brushed Harry's hair away from the lightning bolt. "It's inflamed. We should have Yennefer look at it." As they entered the keep, they found Yennefer already hurrying toward them, her face tight with concern. "I felt the disturbance," she said without preamble. "Something crossed between worlds." "Not quite," Ciri corrected. "But it tried to. A dementor almost followed us through my portal." Yennefer's violet eyes widened. "That shouldn't be possible." The barriers between worlds are weakening, Geralt finished grimly. At least where Harry is concerned. Yennefer led them to her workshop, where she examined Harry thoroughly, paying special attention to his scar. She murmured incantations, her fingers tracing patterns in the air above his forehead. The connection is growing stronger, she finally announced. The scar isn't just a mark, it's a doorway. A tether between Harry and something in his original world. Voldemort, Harry said quietly. Yennefer's gaze sharpened. Yes, most likely. If he still exists in some form, the connection would be to him. If he's truly gone, then perhaps to the place or circumstance of his demise. Can you sever it? Geralt asked. Yennefer shook her head. Not without risking Harry's life. The connection has been part of him too long, it's woven into his very being. To remove it now would be like removing part of me, Harry finished. Precisely. Yennefer touched his chin, lifting his face to meet her eyes. But we can teach you to control it. To shield your mind. To turn the connection from vulnerability to strength. How? Occlumency, Yennefer said. The art of protecting one's mind against external penetration. It exists in your world as well, though few master it. We'll combine their techniques with our methods of mental shielding. Harry nodded determinedly. When do we start? Tomorrow, Yennefer promised. Today, you rest. The encounter with the dementor has drained you more than you realize. As if her words had triggered awareness, Harry suddenly felt bone-deep exhaustion washing over him. He yawned widely. Go to bed, Geralt ordered, his tone brooking no argument. We'll talk more when you've rested. Harry nodded, too tired to protest. As he left the workshop, he heard Geralt say to Yennefer and Ciri, we need to prepare. If creatures from his world can sense him now. The door closed before Harry could hear the rest, but the gravity in Geralt's voice told him everything he needed to know. Things were changing. The peaceful life he'd built at Kaer Morhen was about to become more complicated. In the weeks that followed, Harry's training intensified on all fronts. Mornings were devoted to physical combat with Geralt, sword work, hand-to-hand fighting, monster identification and weaknesses. Afternoons belonged to Yennefer, who drilled him relentlessly in both wand and wandless magic, with a heavy emphasis on defensive spells and mental shielding. Again, she commanded after Harry failed to block her mental probe for the 5th time. Focus, Harry. Imagine your thoughts as a fortress. Build walls. Set guards. Harry gritted his teeth and tried again. Occlumency was the hardest skill he'd attempted to master. His mind naturally wanted to race, to jump from thought to thought. Disciplining it to stillness felt like trying to freeze a river. I can't, he finally admitted, slumping in exhaustion. You can, Yennefer countered. But not through force. You're trying to build a dam against the current. Instead, learn to direct the flow. Channel it. She sat across from him, her violet eyes intense. Try something different. Don't empty your mind. Fill it instead. Choose one memory, something powerful but controlled. Focus everything on that single image. Harry closed his eyes, considering. After a moment, he settled on the memory of his adoption ritual with Geralt, the moment he officially became a Witcher's son. He focused on the feeling of their blood mingling, the sense of belonging that had washed over him. Ready, he murmured. He felt Yennefer's presence at the edges of his mind, a gentle but insistent pressure. Instead of trying to push her out, he pulled the memory forward, making it fill his entire consciousness. The details became vivid, the sunrise over the mountains, the rough stone of the tower beneath his feet, the solemn look in Geralt's yellow eyes. The pressure of Yennefer's mental probe slipped away, unable to find purchase in the smooth, unified surface of his concentrated thought. Good. Yennefer's voice broke his concentration. That's the right approach for you. Not emptiness, but focus. A shield of intense concentration. Harry grinned, pleased with the breakthrough. Can I try again? They practiced for another hour, Harry gradually improving his ability to maintain focus under pressure. By the end, he could hold Yennefer at bay for nearly a minute, not perfect, but progress. Enough for today, she finally declared. You've earned a break. Harry was halfway to the door when Yennefer added, there's something else you should know. About your scar. He turned back, instantly alert. What about it? I've been researching magical scars from your world. Yennefer gestured to a stack of books Ciri had brought back from various dimensions. There's a possibility, a theory, really, that your scar contains a fragment of Voldemort himself. Harry's hand went instinctively to his forehead. What does that mean? Part of him is inside me. Not exactly, Yennefer clarified. More like an echo or imprint. In the magical tradition of your world, it's called a Horcrux, though an accidental one, I suspect. A piece of soul, separated by the act of murder, then latching onto the nearest living vessel when his killing curse rebounded. Harry felt sick. So I'm carrying around a piece of my parents' murderer. If the theory is correct, Yennefer nodded grimly. Which would explain the connection. The visions. The way creatures from your world can sense you across dimensions. Can it be removed? I'm still researching that, Yennefer said. But Harry, if it's true, it also gives you a weapon. Access to his thoughts. His weaknesses. The connection works both ways. Harry considered this, his initial disgust giving way to strategic thinking, another gift from his Witcher training. So I could use it against him. If he ever returns. Potentially, Yennefer agreed. Though not without risk. Minds are complex battlegrounds. Harry nodded, a new determination settling over him. Then I need to get better at occlumency. Fast. Summer faded into autumn, and Harry's 11th birthday approached, the age when, in another life, he would have received his Hogwarts letter. Ciri had been making more frequent trips between worlds, gathering information and returning with books and magical items to aid Harry's education. On one crisp fall morning, Geralt took Harry on a long-promised excursion, his first real monster contract. A Nun-wraith, Geralt explained as they rode along a mountain trail, Harry on a pony sized for his small stature. Haunting a farm in the valley. Simple enough for your first contract, but dangerous if handled carelessly. Harry nodded seriously, mentally reviewing what he knew about Nun-wraiths from his studies. They appear at midday. Victims of violent death who seek revenge. Vulnerable to silver, burden signs, and moondust bombs. Good, Geralt approved. And how do you permanently dispose of one? Find and destroy the object binding it to this world, Harry recited. Often a piece of jewelry or personal item buried with the body. And I stay behind you at all times unless you specifically tell me otherwise, Harry added with a hint of a grin. Geralt's lip twitched. Precisely. They reached the farm near noon, perfect timing to catch the wraith at its most active. The farmer, a weather-beaten man with calloused hands, greeted them with obvious relief. Bless you for coming, Master Witcher, he said to Geralt before his eyes fell on Harry. But the boy. My apprentice, Geralt said shortly. Tell us about the haunting. As the farmer described the situation, a young woman murdered by her jealous suitor, now appearing to attack farm workers in the south field, Harry surveyed the area with senses honed by Witcher training. His eyes, while not mutated like Geralt's, had been enhanced by years of specialized exercises and mild alchemical treatments that Vesemir had deemed safe for a child. He noticed something the adults missed, a small trail of withered plants leading from the haunted field toward an old oak tree some distance away. When the farmer finished his tale, Harry tugged at Geralt's sleeve. The tree, he whispered. Look at the trail. Geralt followed Harry's gaze, his yellow eyes narrowing as he spotted the dead vegetation. He nodded approvingly. Good eye. To the farmer, he said, we'll handle it. Stay inside until we return. They approached the field cautiously, Geralt mixing ingredients for a moondust bomb as they walked. The sun climbed toward its zenith, beating down on the abandoned field where no one dared work. "Be ready," Geralt murmured as they reached the edge of the field. "She'll appear soon. Remember your training." Harry drew his silver dagger, still not allowed a full-sized silver sword, and held his wand ready in his other hand. The dual-wielding style he developed under Geralt's guidance allowed him to combine Witcher combat techniques with wizard spells in a way unique to him. As the sun reached its highest point, the air in the center of the field shimmered. A translucent figure materialized, a young woman in a torn dress, her throat bearing a vicious cut, her eyes hollow pits of hatred. "Stay back," Geralt ordered quietly. "Observe first." The Noonwraith drifted across the field, unaware of their presence. Geralt studied its movements, noting its patterns. "The binding object will be near the tree," he murmured. "We need to destroy it, but first we must deal with her. Ready?" Harry nodded, heart pounding but mind clear. Geralt cast Erden, creating a magical trap on the ground. Then he stepped forward, deliberately making noise to attract the wraith's attention. The creature spun, seeing him, and shrieked, a sound that raised goosebumps on Harry's arms. It charged, spectral hands extended like claws. Geralt waited until it entered the Erden trap, which slowed and partially materialized the wraith. Then he attacked with his silver sword, the blade whistling through the air to connect with the creature's form. The Noonwraith screamed again, this time in pain. It lashed out, catching Geralt across the chest with its claws. The Witcher grunted but didn't falter, continuing his assault. Suddenly, the wraith multiplied, creating 3 identical copies of itself that surrounded Geralt. "Harry!" "The copies!" Geralt called, focused on the original. Harry's moment had come. He raised his wand at the nearest copy. "Incendio!" he shouted. Fire erupted around the false wraith, causing it to wail and dissolve. Harry spun to face the next one, combining spell and physical attack. He slashed with his silver dagger while casting another fire spell. The combination worked, the second copy dissipated. The third copy lunged at him. Harry ducked and rolled, a move Geralt had drilled into him countless times. He came up behind the wraith and thrust his dagger into its ethereal back while shouting, "Flipendo!" The knockback jinx combined with the silver penetration caused the copy to explode into wisps of ghostly matter. Meanwhile, Geralt had weakened the original wraith significantly. "The tree," he shouted to Harry. "Find what binds her." Harry sprinted toward the oak tree, following the trail of dead plants. At its base, he spotted freshly turned soil. Dropping to his knees, he began digging frantically with his hands. Behind him, the sounds of combat continued, Geralt keeping the wraith occupied while Harry searched. His fingers struck something hard. He dug faster, uncovering a small wooden box. Inside lay a silver locket containing a portrait of the dead woman. The binding object. "Geralt! I found it," he called. "Destroy it." Geralt shouted back, narrowly avoiding the wraith's claws. Harry pointed his wand at the locket. "Confringo!" The blasting curse hit the locket, shattering it into fragments. From the field came an unearthly wail. Harry turned to see the Noonwraith writhing, its form dissolving as its anchor to the world was destroyed. In moments it was gone, leaving only a heavy silence and the scent of ozone in the air. Geralt approached, sheathing his sword. He had a few scratches but nothing serious. "Well done," he said simply, but the pride in his voice meant everything to Harry. "We did it," Harry grinned, adrenaline still coursing through him. "My first contract." "The first of many," Geralt agreed, ruffling his hair. "You kept your head. Used your training. Combined your skills effectively." Harry beamed at the praise. As they walked back to inform the grateful farmer, Geralt added, "Though next time, perhaps use the silver before the magic." The dagger strike was slightly delayed. Always room for improvement, Harry nodded seriously, then broke into another smile. Wait till I tell Ciri. Harry's triumph was short-lived. They returned to Kaer Morhen that evening to find the keep in an uproar. Ciri had returned from another cross-world journey, badly wounded. Harry ran ahead of Geralt, sprinting up to Yennefer's workshop where Vesemir directed them. He burst through the door to find Ciri lying on a cot, her side bandaged, her face pale. Ciri, he cried, rushing to her side. She opened her eyes, managing a weak smile. Hey, little brother. How was the hunt? Never mind that. What happened to you? Geralt entered behind Harry, his expression grim as he took in Ciri's condition. Who did this? Yennefer, who was preparing a healing potion nearby, answered. She was attacked in Harry's world. By wizards in masks. Death Eaters, Ciri confirmed, wincing as she tried to sit up. Voldemort's followers. Harry felt cold dread settling in his stomach. Why would they attack you? Ciri and Yennefer exchanged glances. Finally, Ciri sighed. They were looking for you, Harry. They know you're alive. And they know you're not at your aunt and uncle's anymore. How? Geralt demanded. I don't know, Ciri admitted. But they were searching Hogwarts and the surrounding area. When they sensed my portal, my magic is similar enough to Harry's that it confused them, they attacked. Harry's hand went to his scar, which had begun to prickle uncomfortably. Is he back? Voldemort? Not fully, Ciri said. From what I overheard, he's weak, seeking ways to return to power. But his followers are becoming more active, preparing for his comeback. And they want Harry, Geralt concluded, his voice dangerously quiet. Yes. Ciri reached for Harry's hand, squeezing it. I'm sorry, Harry. I led them to us by exploring too openly. It's not your fault, Harry assured her. But, what do we do now? Yennefer brought a steaming cup to Ciri. We prepare, she said firmly. We've known this day might come. Harry's connection to that world was never severed, only suspended. We'll increase security at Kaer Morhen, Geralt decided. Warn the other Witchers. Set magical alarms. And continue training, Yennefer added, looking at Harry. Everything we've been working toward, it becomes even more important now. Harry nodded solemnly. The carefree boy who had celebrated his first monster contract just hours ago was gone. In his place stood a young Witcher wizard who understood that a storm was gathering, and he stood at its center. Winter descended on Kaer Morhen, bringing with it heavy snows that isolated the keep from the outside world. It should have been a time of peace, of training and study within the fortress walls. Instead, it became a season of vigilance. More Witchers returned to the keep than had been seen in decades, answering Geralt's call. Eskel, Lambert, Cohen, veterans of the path who had known Geralt for decades and came without question when he spoke of a threat to his adopted son. Harry found himself the center of attention, studied by curious yellow eyes wherever he went. The other Witchers watched him train, observed his unique blend of magic and Witcher techniques, occasionally offering suggestions or challenging him to spar. He moves like you, Lambert told Geralt one evening as they watched Harry practicing sword forms in the Great Hall. Same economy of motion. Same focus. But the magic, Eskel added. That's something else entirely. Not like our signs. More versatile. More dangerous, Geralt corrected. For him as much as his enemies. That's why he needs all of us now. The Witchers integrated themselves into Harry's training, each contributing their specialty. Eskel, with his mastery of signs, helped Harry blend Witcher magic with his wizard spells. Lambert, the most acrobatic fighter, taught him to combine mobility with spellcasting. Cohen shared knowledge of monsters unique to his region. Harry absorbed it all, driven by the knowledge that someday, perhaps soon, he would face enemies from his original world who would show no mercy. His nightmares intensified as winter deepened. He would wake screaming, his scar bleeding, with fragmented visions of Voldemort growing stronger. Yennefer taught him to record these visions immediately upon waking, looking for patterns or clues. One night in late January, he had the clearest vision yet: Voldemort, still weak and barely corporeal, drinking unicorn blood in a dark forest. "He's sustaining himself," Yennefer concluded when Harry reported the vision. "Unicorn blood can keep you alive even if you're an inch from death. But at a terrible price, a cursed half-life." "He's preparing for something," Harry said. "I can feel it. He needs something to fully return." Geralt, who had been listening silently, finally spoke. "Whatever it is, we'll be ready." But as winter turned to spring, it became clear that the threat might reach them before they were fully prepared. Harry's connection to Voldemort grew stronger, more intrusive. Sometimes he would stop mid-sentence, overwhelmed by flashes of rage or triumph that weren't his own. The barriers between worlds continued to thin. Twice, Kaer Morhen's magical alarms were triggered by creatures trying to cross over, once another dementor, once something Ciri identified as a wizard attempting dimensional travel. Ciri herself continued to make cautious journeys to gather information, though now she never went alone, always accompanied by at least one witcher. She returned from one such mission with grave news. "Voldemort is seeking the Philosopher's Stone," she told them. "A magical artifact that can create the elixir of life. With it, he could fully restore himself." "Where is this stone?" Geralt demanded. "Hidden at Hogwarts," Ciri said. "Under heavy protection. But his agents are closing in." Harry, who had been practicing combat roles with Lambert, joined the conversation. "We have to stop him. If he gets the stone." "It's not our fight," Lambert objected. "Not our world, not our problem." "It became our problem when they started hunting Harry," Geralt countered. "And if this Voldemort regains his power, the boundaries between worlds will weaken further. He'll come for Harry eventually. So we fight his war for him?" Lambert challenged. "No," Harry said firmly, drawing all eyes to him. "You don't fight for me. You train me to fight my own battles." He looked directly at Geralt. "And that's what I intend to do." A heavy silence fell. Harry stood straight, chin raised, green eyes blazing with determination. In that moment, despite being only 10 years old and small for his age, he looked every inch a witcher. "You're not ready," Eskel said gently. "I'm more ready than I would have been without you," Harry countered. "And I'm not suggesting I go alone. But I can't hide here forever while Voldemort grows stronger." "He's right," Ciri said quietly. "The longer we wait, the more dangerous it becomes. Better to confront the threat while Voldemort is still weak." Geralt's face was unreadable, his yellow eyes fixed on Harry. Finally, he nodded once. "We plan carefully. No one goes charging into another world half-prepared." The next few weeks were devoted to intensive preparation. Maps of Hogwarts were drawn based on Ciri's observations. Strategies were debated. Potions were brewed, witcher concoctions adapted for Harry's unique physiology. Yennefer enhanced Harry's wand with additional enchantments and taught him more advanced combat spells. Ciri worked with him on moving between worlds, teaching him to feel the boundaries, though his ability remained far less developed than hers. Through it all, Harry's determination never wavered. The frightened boy who had come to them 6 years earlier was gone, replaced by a young witcher with a destiny he was prepared to face. On the eve of what they had designated as the mission date, Geralt found Harry on the battlements, staring at the stars. He joined him in silence for several minutes before speaking. "Nervous?" Harry nodded honestly. "But not afraid?" "Not really." "Good. Fear gets you killed. Caution keeps you alive." Another silence fell between them, comfortable in its familiarity. Finally, Harry asked the question that had been weighing on him. "What if I have to stay there? In that world?" Geralt turned to look at him fully. "Do you want to?" "No," Harry said immediately. This is my home. You, Ciri, Yen, Vesemir, you're my family. But what if that world needs me? What if that's where I'm supposed to be? Geralt placed a hand on Harry's shoulder. Home isn't a place, Harry. It's people. Wherever you need to go, whatever you need to do, we'll be with you. Always. Harry leaned into the touch, drawing strength from it. I'm glad you found me, he said simply. So am I, Geralt replied. Then, with a hint of his dry humor, though you've caused more trouble than a nest of ghouls. Harry laughed, tension breaking. Just wait till tomorrow. The next morning dawned clear and cold. The small expedition gathered in the courtyard, Harry, Geralt, Ciri, and Yennefer. Each was armed and prepared for combat in their own way. Harry wore lightweight leather armor designed by the keep's craftsman specifically for him. His silver dagger hung at his hip, his wand secured in its forearm sheath. Around his neck, a medallion similar to Geralt's but bearing the combined symbols of wolf and stag, representing both his Witcher training and his original heritage, which Ciri had discovered included a father who could transform into a stag. Vesemir approached, carrying something wrapped in cloth. For you, he said gruffly, presenting it to Harry. A Witcher should have proper equipment. Harry unwrapped the bundle to find a silver sword, not full-sized, but larger than his dagger. Perfect for his current height and strength. The hilt bore the wolf's head of the School of the Wolf, and the blade was etched with runes. Thank you, Harry said, his voice thick with emotion. He strapped the sword to his back, feeling its weight settle between his shoulder blades. Vesemir nodded, then addressed them all. Return safely. All of you. Ciri stepped forward, concentrating on her power. The familiar emerald energy began to shimmer in the air as a portal formed. Remember the plan, Geralt said. We secure the stone before Voldemort's agent can reach it. In and out, no unnecessary risks. Harry nodded, his face set with determination. I'm ready. Together, they stepped through the portal, leaving Kaer Morhen behind and entering the world Harry had left as a frightened child, the world he now returned to as a Witcher. Chapter 3, Worlds Converging. Harry ducked under the werewolf's swipe, the claws missing his face by inches. For years of intensive training had transformed him from a promising child into a deadly fighter. At 14, he moved with the fluid grace of a born Witcher combined with his own unique magical style. Now would be good, he called to Geralt, who circled to the beast's flank. The werewolf, larger than any they'd encountered before, roared and lunged again. Harry didn't retreat. Instead, he stepped into the attack, silver sword flashing. The blade bit into the creature's forearm, drawing a howl of pain and rage. Harry used the moment to cast with his free hand, no longer needing his wand for combat magic. Impedimenta. The jinx struck the werewolf's legs, momentarily slowing its movements. Geralt seized the opening, driving his own silver blade deep into the monster's side. The werewolf thrashed, nearly throwing the Witcher off, but Geralt held firm. Harry! The heart, he shouted. In one fluid motion, Harry sheathed his sword and drew his wand. This spell needed precision. Defindo. The cutting charm sliced through fur, skin, and bone, opening the beast's chest cavity. Geralt plunged his hand into the wound, grabbed the still beating heart, and wrenched it free. The werewolf collapsed, its massive body shuddering once before going still. Fuck, Harry breathed, wiping sweat from his forehead. That was close. Geralt examined the heart in his hand. Something's wrong with it. Look at the coloration. Harry peered at the organ. Where a werewolf's heart should be deep red, this one had veins of black running through it. Corruption? Maybe. Geralt wrapped the heart carefully. Yennefer will want to examine it. As they cleaned their blades, Harry glanced at the wolf medallion hanging around his neck. It had been vibrating almost constantly for weeks now, sensing magic nearby, but not the usual kind. Something different. Something from his original world. Third one this month, Harry noted as they collected their gear. And bigger than the others. Geralt nodded grimly. They're changing. Adapting. And there's too many of them in this region. The trek back to their camp was silent, both lost in thought. For the past year, monster populations had been increasing across the continent. More concerning, the creatures were behaving strangely, appearing where they shouldn't, exhibiting unusual abilities, growing more aggressive. Ciri was waiting at their campsite, tending a small fire. Her face brightened as they approached, then turned serious when she saw their expressions. "Another corrupted one?" she asked. Harry nodded, dropping his pack. "Biggest yet. Nearly took my head off." Ciri's eyes narrowed as she examined a small cut on Harry's cheek. "You're bleeding." "It's nothing." Harry waved her concern away, though he secretly appreciated it. At 14, he tried to project constant confidence, but Ciri still saw through him as easily as when he was 4. "We need to return to Kaer Morhen," Geralt said, unpacking the werewolf heart. "Something's happening, and I don't like it." Harry couldn't argue. The Witcher fortress had become busier than ever as monsters grew more numerous and dangerous. Witchers from all schools now gathered there to share information and coordinate their response to what many were calling the Second Conjunction, a shifting of magical barriers between worlds. But Harry knew it was more than that. The dimensional disturbances centered around him, around his scar and its connection to Voldemort. "Any word from Yen?" he asked Ciri as they broke camp. "A message came by Raven while you were hunting. She wants us back immediately." Ciri hesitated. "She said it's about your world, Harry. There's been a development." Harry's hand went instinctively to his scar. It had been burning more frequently lately, sending flashes of emotion that weren't his: anger, anticipation, cruel satisfaction. "He's getting stronger, isn't he?" "Voldemort." Ciri didn't bother denying it. "Yes. The barriers are weakening. The time for hiding is coming to an end." Harry nodded, feeling a strange mixture of dread and relief. For 4 years since their aborted mission to secure the Philosopher's Stone, they'd been preparing for this moment. The stone had been destroyed before they could reach it, temporarily thwarting Voldemort's return to power. But they'd always known it was only a delay, not a defeat. "Let's go home," Harry said. "Time to face the music." Kaer Morhen had transformed over the past decade. What had once been a crumbling fortress housing a handful of aging witchers was now a bustling headquarters for monster hunters across the continent. The central keep had been fully restored, with new wings added to accommodate the influx of witchers and their allies. As Harry, Geralt, and Ciri rode through the gates, they were greeted by the sight of a dozen witchers sparring in the main courtyard, their distinctive yellow eyes and silver swords flashing in the afternoon sun. Lambert broke away from a practice bout to meet them. "About time you showed up. Your sorceress has been pacing the battlements for 2 days. Anything try to kill us while we were gone?" Harry asked with a grin, clasping the witcher's arm. "Just the usual," Lambert smirked. "Necker nest in the eastern pass. Foglet in the valley. Oh, and something new, a creature Eskel swears could turn invisible and had tentacles coming out of its head." Harry and Ciri exchanged sharp glances. "Demiguise?" she asked. "No," Harry shook his head. "Sounds more like a disillusionment charm. Probably a wizard." Lambert's expression darkened. "More crossovers from your world. Wonderful." They stabled their horses and headed to the main hall, where they found Yennefer in deep conversation with Vesemir. The old witcher had finally started showing his age, his movements slower though no less precise. Yennefer, of course, looked exactly the same as the day Harry had met her, the benefits of magical longevity. "You're back," she said, violet eyes quickly assessing them for injuries. "Good. We have much to discuss." Harry handed over the corrupted werewolf heart. "Another one. Bigger than before." Yennefer examined it with a frown. "The corruption is spreading faster. This magic. She hesitated, glancing at Harry. It's from your world. Wizard magic, twisted somehow. How is that possible? Geralt asked. The creatures here have never been exposed to wizard magic before. The barriers between worlds are breaking down, Yennefer explained. Not just allowing travel between them, but allowing magics to bleed through and combine. It's destabilizing the natural order. Harry ran a hand through his perpetually messy hair. And it's my fault. The connection. Not your fault, Ciri corrected firmly. Voldemort's. He created the link when he marked you. Yennefer gestured for them to sit. There's more. We've had a visitor. From my world? Harry guessed. Yes. He arrived 3 days ago. Appeared right in the middle of the Great Hall during dinner, gave Lambert quite a start. A hint of amusement touched Yennefer's lips before vanishing. He calls himself Albus Dumbledore. Headmaster of Hogwarts. Harry felt like he'd been punched in the gut. Dumbledore. The name had appeared in his research about the wizarding world, always described as the greatest wizard of the age. The only one Voldemort ever feared. Where is he now? Geralt demanded, hand instinctively moving toward his sword. In the North Tower. Vesemir is keeping him company. He came alone and has made no threatening moves. Yennefer fixed her gaze on Harry. He asked for you specifically. Says it's time you knew the whole truth. Harry's jaw tightened. About my parents? About why Voldemort tried to kill me? Yes, Yennefer nodded. And about why he's growing stronger now. Why the barriers are failing. Harry stood abruptly. Then let's not keep him waiting. The North Tower had always been Harry's favorite part of Kaer Morhen. Its windows faced the highest peaks of the Blue Mountains, providing a vista that still took his breath away even after 10 years. Now, it was occupied by a tall, thin man with flowing silver hair and beard, wearing robes of deep purple spangled with stars. Half-moon spectacles perched on a crooked nose, behind which twinkled bright blue eyes. The moment Harry entered, those eyes fixed on him with an intensity that made his scar prickle. It wasn't painful, not like when he sensed Voldemort's emotions, but it felt like being X-rayed. Harry Potter, the old wizard said softly. At last we meet. Harry stepped forward, Geralt and Ciri flanking him like bodyguards. It's Harry of Rivia now, actually. Or Harry of Kaer Morhen. I haven't been a Potter for a long time. If Dumbledore was offended by the correction, he didn't show it. Of course. Forgive an old man's presumption. Your parents would be proud to see the young man you've become, regardless of the name you bear. You knew my parents? Harry asked, unable to keep the eagerness from his voice despite his wariness. Very well, Dumbledore nodded. Your father, James, was a brilliant student, gifted at transfiguration and quite the troublemaker. Your mother, Lily, was one of the brightest witches of her age, exceptional at charms and potions. His gaze softened. You have her eyes, you know. Harry had seen photos of his parents, Ciri had brought them from the wizarding world years ago. But hearing about them from someone who knew them personally made them suddenly more real. Geralt cleared his throat. You didn't cross dimensions for a family reunion. Why are you here? Dumbledore turned to the white-haired witcher. Direct, aren't you? A quality I appreciate, especially in these troubling times. He sighed, suddenly looking every one of his considerable years. I've come because Lord Voldemort has returned to power. Fully corporeal, with all his terrible abilities intact. Despite having suspected this, hearing it confirmed sent a chill down Harry's spine. How? A dark ritual, performed just weeks ago. It required 3 key ingredients: bone of the father, flesh of the servant, and blood of the enemy. Dumbledore's eyes flicked to Harry's scar. Your blood would have been preferable to him, but in your absence, he used another who had once defied him. The ritual was successful, though perhaps not as powerful as he had hoped. And now he's coming for Harry, Ciri stated flatly. Yes, Dumbledore confirmed. But there's more at stake than one boy, significant though he may be. Voldemort's resurrection has accelerated a magical process that began the night he gave you that scar, Harry. The connection between you spans worlds, and as he grows stronger, that connection acts as a conduit, weakening the barriers between dimensions. The monster mutations, Harry realized. The increase in numbers. It's all connected. Precisely, Dumbledore nodded. Your world and Harry's are bleeding into each other. If the process continues unchecked, both will suffer catastrophic magical disturbances. Creatures not meant to coexist will find themselves sharing territories. Spells will behave unpredictably. Eventually, the fabric of both realities could tear beyond repair. Geralt's expression hardened. And the solution? The connection must be broken, Dumbledore said simply. And to do that, Voldemort must be defeated once and for all. By me, Harry concluded, meeting the old wizard's gaze. Because of the prophecy. Surprise flickered across Dumbledore's face. You know of the prophecy? Parts of it, Harry admitted. Ciri heard rumors during her visits to your world. The one with the power to vanquish the Dark Lord approaches, born to those who have thrice defied him, born as the 7th month dies. And the Dark Lord will mark him as his equal, but he will have power the Dark Lord knows not, Dumbledore continued. And either must die at the hand of the other, for neither can live while the other survives. A heavy silence fell over the room. Harry had long suspected he would eventually have to confront Voldemort, but hearing the prophecy in full made it undeniably real. So I have to kill him, Harry said. Or he kills me. That is one interpretation, Dumbledore acknowledged. Though prophecies are notoriously tricky things. Interpretation be damned, Geralt growled. You're asking a 14-year-old boy to face a dark wizard who's murdered countless fully trained adults. I assure you, that is not my intention, Dumbledore said calmly. Harry needs training, proper wizarding training that, with all due respect to your obvious capabilities, he cannot receive here. You want to take him to Hogwarts, Ciri stated. Yes. Where he can learn the magic he'll need to face what's coming. Where he can be protected by ancient wards while he prepares. Dumbledore turned back to Harry. It should have been your home all along. If I had known you were being mistreated by the Dursleys, would never have left you there. Harry crossed his arms. Kaer Morhen is my home. These people are my family. He gestured to Geralt and Ciri. I understand, Dumbledore said gently. And I'm not suggesting you abandon them. But Harry, time is running short. The magical disturbances will only worsen. People in both worlds are already dying. Harry looked to Geralt, the man who had raised him, trained him, loved him as a son. The Witcher's yellow eyes were troubled but resolute. It's your decision, Geralt said. But if you go, you don't go alone. Ciri nodded in agreement. Family stays together. Harry turned back to Dumbledore. I'll come to Hogwarts. But on my terms. Geralt and Ciri come with me. I continue my Witcher training alongside wizard studies. And we share all information about Voldemort, no secrets, no manipulations. Dumbledore studied him for a long moment. You've grown into a remarkable young man, Harry. Far different from what I might have expected. He inclined his head. Very well. I accept your terms. There's one more condition, Geralt added, his voice leaving no room for negotiation. Harry's identity remains secret as long as possible. He enters Hogwarts as Harry of Rivia, a transfer student. Not as Harry Potter, the boy who lived. That may be difficult to maintain, Dumbledore cautioned. The scar is rather distinctive. Harry grinned, drawing his wand. With a quick spell, his hair grew longer, falling past his shoulders in the style many young Witchers wore. The longer strands effectively concealed the lightning bolt on his forehead. Problem solved, he said. Dumbledore's eyes twinkled. Indeed. Now, I suggest we depart soon. The new term begins in 2 weeks, which will give us time to procure your supplies and acclimate you to the castle before other students arrive. We need a few days to prepare, Geralt said. Harry has responsibilities here that can't be abandoned overnight. Of course, Dumbledore agreed. I shall return to Hogwarts and make arrangements. Shall we say, 3 days hence? Harry nodded, mind already racing with preparations. After a decade of training, the time had come to face his original destiny. But he wouldn't face it as the scared child Voldemort had marked, he would face it as a witcher, with all the skills and knowledge Geralt, Ciri, and the others had given him. The next 3 days passed in a flurry of activity. Harry briefed the other witchers on what they'd learned, particularly about the magical contamination affecting monsters. Eskel and Lambert volunteered to investigate further, tracking mutation patterns across the continent. Yennefer helped Harry pack appropriate equipment, potion ingredients that might be hard to find in the wizarding world, specialized witcher tools, books on monsters and their weaknesses. She also gave him a set of enchanted journals that would allow them to communicate across dimensions. Write in this daily, she instructed, handing him a leather-bound book. I've linked it with copies for myself, Geralt, and Ciri. Anything written in one appears in all 4 instantly. Brilliant, Harry grinned, tucking it into his pack. Vesemir took charge of Harry's combat preparations, drilling him intensively on techniques for fighting human opponents rather than monsters. Wizards will fight differently, the old witcher cautioned as they sparred. They rely on range and will try to keep you at a distance. Close that gap quickly and use your physical training to your advantage. And if I can't get close? Harry asked, parrying a thrust. Then shield and counter, Vesemir advised. Your dual training gives you options they won't expect. Use that surprise. On the eve of their departure, a feast was held in the Great Hall. All the witchers currently at Kaer Morhen attended, along with allies who had helped train Harry over the years. Toasts were made, stories shared, advice given freely. After the meal, Geralt found Harry on the battlements, gazing at the stars as he often did when troubled. Having second thoughts, the Witcher asked, joining him. Harry shook his head. Not about going. But. He hesitated. What if I fail? What if I'm not strong enough to face him? Strength isn't everything, Geralt said. I've defeated enemies far stronger than me by being smarter, faster, better prepared. He placed a hand on Harry's shoulder. You won't face him tomorrow. Or the next day. You'll learn, grow stronger, find his weaknesses. And when the time comes, you won't face him alone. The prophecy says, fuck prophecies, Geralt interrupted. I've had enough prophecies and destiny for 2 lifetimes. We make our own fate. Harry smiled, some of the tension leaving his shoulders. You sound like Yen when you talk like that. Don't tell her I said it, Geralt said dryly. She'll never let me hear the end of it. They stood in comfortable silence for a while, watching the stars will overhead. Finally, Harry asked, are you worried? About going to Hogwarts? Geralt considered this. It won't be the strangest place I've been. But yes, I'm concerned. Not about the magic or the wizards, but about you being seen as Harry Potter again instead of yourself. I'm still me, Harry said firmly. No matter what they call me. Good, Geralt nodded. Remember that. The morning of their departure dawned clear and cold. Harry stood in the courtyard with Geralt and Ciri, their packs ready, saying final goodbyes to the Witcher family that had raised him. Vesemir clasped his arm in the Witcher farewell. Remember your training. Stay sharp. Come back to us when this is done. I will, Harry promised. Yennefer embraced him, something she rarely did. Be careful with that connection, she murmured in his ear. Shield your mind every night before sleep. And don't trust Dumbledore completely, he has his own agenda. I know, Harry whispered back. I'll be careful. Lambert and Eskel offered briefer farewells. Witchers weren't known for sentimentality, but their concern was evident in their eyes. Don't let those wizards make you soft, Lambert warned. Bring me back something interesting, Eskel added with a half-smile. A shimmer in the air announced Dumbledore's arrival. The old wizard appeared in the center of the courtyard, today wearing midnight blue robes embroidered with silver stars. Are we ready? He asked, taking in the scene with keen eyes. Harry nodded, squaring his shoulders. He wore a blend of witcher and wizard attire, leather armor under an open black robe, his silver sword strapped to his back, wand in its forearm sheath. His medallion hung visibly around his neck, the wolf's head gleaming in the morning sun. How are we traveling? Ciri asked, eyeing Dumbledore curiously. I could open a portal, thank you, but that won't be necessary, Dumbledore interrupted politely. I've created a specialized portkey that will transport us directly to Hogwarts, bypassing its usual anti-transportation wards. He produced an ordinary-looking silver spoon. If you would all place a finger on this, please. Geralt looked skeptical but followed Harry's lead in touching the utensil. Ciri did the same, her free hand resting on her sword hilt. On 3, Dumbledore said. 1, 2, 3. Harry felt a powerful jerk behind his navel, as if a hook had latched there and yanked him forward. The world dissolved into a whirlwind of color and sound. When it reformed, they were standing in a circular office filled with strange silver instruments and portraits that moved and whispered among themselves. Welcome, Dumbledore said, to Hogwarts. Harry staggered slightly, disoriented by the transportation method. Beside him, Geralt looked faintly nauseated, while Ciri seemed completely unfazed, accustomed as she was to magical travel. Interesting technique, she commented. Different from my portals. Indeed, Dumbledore agreed. Your ability to traverse dimensions is quite remarkable, Miss Cirilla. I look forward to discussing it further. He gestured to the office around them. These are my quarters. You'll be staying in a private wing of the castle while we prepare for term. Harry barely heard him, too busy taking in the magical objects that filled the room. A scarlet and gold bird the size of a swan perched near the desk, watching them with intelligent eyes. Bookshelves lined the walls, filled with ancient tomes. And on a high shelf sat a tattered wizard's hat that seemed to twitch slightly as he looked at it. The sorting hat, Dumbledore noted, following Harry's gaze. Normally, it would determine which house you'd join. Given your unique situation, however, we may need to make special arrangements. I'm not here to join a house, Harry stated firmly. I'm here to learn what I need to defeat Voldemort. And so you shall, Dumbledore assured him. But there are advantages to the house system: support, camaraderie, structured learning. Before Harry could argue further, the office door opened, and a stern-looking witch with square spectacles entered. She stopped short at the sight of them, her eyes widening as they fell on Harry. Albus, you've returned. Is this, she broke off, clearly struggling to reconcile the leather-clad, sword-wielding teenager before her with whatever image she'd had of Harry Potter. Professor McGonagall, Dumbledore said smoothly, may I present Harry of Rivia, along with his guardian, Geralt of Rivia, and Cirilla Fiona Elin Rhiannon. They will be joining us for the coming term. McGonagall regained her composure quickly. Welcome to Hogwarts, she said, inclining her head. I am Professor Minerva McGonagall, Deputy Headmistress and head of Gryffindor House. Harry nodded respectfully. Pleasure to meet you, Professor. Her eyes lingered on his forehead, mostly hidden by his long hair, then flicked to the sword on his back and the medallion around his neck. You've had quite an unconventional upbringing, I understand. You could say that, Harry agreed with a slight smile. McGonagall turned to Dumbledore. The arrangements you requested are complete. The East Wing has been prepared, and the special curriculum materials delivered. Excellent, Dumbledore beamed. Minerva, would you be so kind as to show our guests to their quarters? I have a few matters to attend to before this evening's meeting. As McGonagall led them from the office and through the castle's winding corridors, Harry tried to memorize their route, a habit from Witcher training. The castle was even more impressive from within than it had been from a distance when he'd visited with Ciri 4 years earlier. Staircases moved, portraits conversed, and ghosts drifted through walls. The East Wing hasn't been used for regular students in some time, McGonagall explained as they climbed yet another staircase. It will give you privacy while still allowing access to classrooms and the Great Hall. Are there other students in the castle now? Harry asked. Not yet, McGonagall replied. They arrive in 2 weeks for the start of term. Only staff are present currently. They reached a corridor guarded by a suit of armor that saluted as they approached. Beyond it lay a comfortable suite of rooms, a shared sitting area with 3 bedrooms branching off it, plus a small study and private bathroom. These will be your quarters, McGonagall said. Meals can be taken here or in the Great Hall, as you prefer. The headmaster has arranged for specialized training to begin tomorrow. Her gaze settled on Harry again. I knew your parents well, Mr. Potter, or Rivia, if you prefer. They would be proud of the young man you've become, I'm certain. With that, she left them to settle in. As the door closed behind her, Geralt immediately began examining the rooms, checking for exits and potential security concerns, old habits of a Witcher in unfamiliar territory. Interesting place, he commented, testing a window that overlooked the castle grounds. Defensible, at least. Ciri was exploring the bookshelves that lined one wall of the sitting room. Look at these texts. Magical theory I've never seen before. This could be incredibly useful. Harry sat on a couch, suddenly overwhelmed by the reality of what they were doing. He was at Hogwarts, the place he might have grown up, made friends, learned magic if his life had taken a different turn. Now he was here not as a normal student but as someone with a destiny to fulfill, a dark wizard to defeat. You okay? Geralt asked, noting his expression. Yeah, Harry nodded. Just, processing. It's strange being here. Like stepping into a life I might have had. But didn't, Geralt reminded him. Don't forget who you are now. Never, Harry promised. The next morning, Harry woke at dawn as usual, his body conditioned by years of Witcher training. He performed his daily exercises in the sitting room, a series of movements designed to maintain flexibility and strength. Halfway through, Ciri joined him, and they sparred lightly, keeping their reflexes sharp. Geralt returned as they finished, having already explored the immediate surroundings of the castle. Place is a labyrinth, he reported. Moving staircases, doors that aren't really doors, walls pretending to be passages. But the grounds are extensive, good for training. A soft pop interrupted them as a small creature with bat-like ears and bulging eyes appeared in their sitting room. Harry recognized it as a house elf from Ciri's descriptions of the wizarding world. Breakfast for the guests, the elf announced, snapping its fingers. The table in the corner filled with platters of food, eggs, bacon, sausages, toast, fruit, and pitchers of juice and milk. Thanks, Harry said, slightly startled by the sudden appearance of both elf and food. Master Harry Potter, sir, is most welcome, the elf squeaked, bowing so low its long nose touched the floor. Dobby is honored to serve the great Harry Potter and his family. Harry winced at the use of Potter, but didn't correct the creature. Just Harry is fine. And this is Geralt and Ciri. The elf, Dobby, stared at them all with undisguised fascination. Dobby has heard the rumors. Harry Potter raised by monster hunters from another world. But Dobby did not believe, and yet here you are. He turned to Geralt, eyeing the Witcher with a mixture of awe and trepidation. The white wolf who fights the dark creatures. News travels fast, Ciri murmured. The Professor Dumbledore, sir, says Dobby is to help you with anything you need, the elf continued. If you is wanting anything, just call Dobby's name. With another deep bow and a crack like a whip, the elf vanished. Well, that was interesting, Harry said, sitting down at the table. "I guess our secret identity isn't going to last long." After breakfast, Dumbledore himself arrived to outline their schedule for the coming days. "Before the other students arrive, we need to assess your magical education, Harry," he explained. "While you've clearly had exceptional training in certain areas, there may be gaps in standard wizarding subjects." "Like what?" Harry asked, curious despite himself. "Transfiguration, charms, potions, herbology, defense against the dark arts, astronomy, history of magic," Dumbledore listed. "The core curriculum at Hogwarts. You'll meet with each professor individually for assessment, then we'll create a specialized study program." "And my Witcher training?" Harry asked. "We've set aside time each day for physical training," Dumbledore assured him. "The grounds and the room of requirement will be available to you. Additionally, Professor McGonagall has expressed interest in learning more about your Witcher signs, which may have applications in transfiguration theory." The assessments began that afternoon. Harry met with Professor Flitwick, the tiny charms master who nearly fell off his stack of books in excitement when Harry demonstrated the wandless shield charm Yennefer had taught him. "Extraordinary," Flitwick squeaked. "Wandless magic at your age, and with such precision. Your mother had a gift for charms too, you know." Next came Transfiguration with McGonagall, who maintained her stern demeanor even as Harry successfully transformed a matchstick into a needle on his first try, a first-year spell, but one he'd never specifically practiced. "You have natural talent," she acknowledged. "But transformation requires discipline and precision. We'll need to work on the theory behind your practical abilities." Potions proved more challenging. Professor Snape, a hook-nosed man with greasy black hair and a perpetual sneer, seemed determined to find fault with Harry's brewing skills, despite the fact that Witcher alchemy had given him an excellent foundation. "Your technique lacks finesse," Snape criticized as Harry prepared a simple cure for boils. "And your ingredient preparation is crude, though I suppose that's to be expected given your unusual upbringing." Harry bit his tongue, remembering Geralt's advice to observe and learn before forming judgments. But he couldn't help noticing how Snape's eyes lingered on him with what seemed like personal animosity. Defense against the dark arts proved to be Harry's strongest subject. Professor Lupin, a shabby but kind-faced man, was visibly impressed by Harry's extensive knowledge of dark creatures and counter-curses. "I've never seen a student your age cast a Patronus charm successfully," Lupin said after Harry produced a shimmering silver stag that cantered around the classroom. "Most adult wizards struggle with it." Harry shrugged. Professor Yennefer, insisted I learn it after our encounter with the dementor years ago. Said it might be the most important spell I ever mastered." "She was right," Lupin said softly. "And your Patronus, it's exactly like your father's was." By the end of the week, Harry had met with all the core subject professors and undergone thorough assessment. The results were discussed at a meeting in Dumbledore's office, attended by the professors, Harry, Geralt, and Ciri. "Mr. Potter demonstrates exceptional ability in defense against the dark arts," McGonagall reported, consulting her notes. "Above-average aptitude in charms, transfiguration, and surprisingly, care of magical creatures. His potions work is competent, if unconventional. Areas requiring significant attention include history of magic, astronomy, and herbology. His practical spell work is advanced for his age," Flitwick added. "But there are gaps in theoretical understanding that will need addressing." "And what of his other training?" Snape asked with a slight curl of his lip. "Are we to accommodate sword fighting and monster hunting alongside proper magical education?" "Yes, Professor Snape, we are," Dumbledore said firmly. "Harry's Witcher training gives him advantages that may prove crucial in the coming conflict. It would be foolish to abandon those skills." "I've reviewed Mr. Potter's combat abilities," Professor Lupin interjected. "They're quite remarkable. His integration of physical fighting with magical defense could revolutionize our approach to dueling." "So what's the plan?" Geralt asked, cutting through the academic discussion. "Harry needs practical skills to face Voldemort, not just classroom theory." Dumbledore steepled his fingers. I propose a hybrid approach. Harry will attend core classes with fourth-year students, supplemented by private tutoring in advanced defensive magic. He will be officially registered as a transfer student named Harry of Rivia, with the understanding that his background must remain confidential for security reasons. And us? Ciri asked. How do you explain our presence? Master Geralt will join Hagrid as an assistant professor for care of magical creatures, focusing on dangerous species. His expertise will be invaluable, and the position provides a natural reason for his presence. Dumbledore turned to Ciri. Lady Cirilla, if you're willing, we could use your dimensional knowledge in ancient runes and arithmancy, subjects dealing with magical theory and translation. Geralt looked surprised but not displeased. Teaching monster lore to wizards might be interesting. One more thing, Harry said. I need time and space to brew witcher potions. They're essential for my fighting style. The dungeons contain several private brewing rooms, Snape said reluctantly. I suppose one could be allocated for your concoctions. Then we are agreed, Dumbledore concluded. Harry will be sorted with the first years at the welcoming feast for appearance's sake, though his actual curriculum will be specialized. As the meeting disbanded, Professor Lupin approached Harry. I'd like to speak with you privately, if I may, he said. About your parents. Harry glanced at Geralt, who nodded slightly. Okay. When? This evening. My office after dinner. I'll be there, Harry promised. Lupin's office was modestly furnished but comfortable, with a large tank containing what appeared to be a water demon in one corner. The professor was waiting with a teapot and 2 cups when Harry arrived. Thank you for coming, Lupin said, pouring tea. I wasn't sure if you'd want to, well, I imagine you've had enough of us prying into your life. Harry accepted the cup. It's fine. You said you knew my parents? James was one of my best friends, Lupin said, a wistful smile crossing his face. We were inseparable at Hogwarts, James, Sirius, Peter, and me. Called ourselves the Marauders. Caused no end of trouble. You were friends with Sirius Black? Harry asked sharply. Through Ciri's information gathering, he'd learned about his godfather, supposedly a mass murderer who had betrayed his parents to Voldemort. Lupin's face darkened. Yes. Before what happened. But that's not why I asked you here. He hesitated. I wanted you to know that your father would be incredibly proud of the young man you've become. Different path than he might have imagined, but the courage, the determination, that's all James. And my mother? Harry asked softly. Lily was brilliant. Fiercely protective of those she loved. She saw the best in people. Lupin studied Harry over his teacup. You have her eyes, but there's something of her spirit in you too. The way you approach problems, looking for innovative solutions. Did you know about the prophecy? Harry asked. Is that why Voldemort came after them? After me? Lupin sighed heavily. I didn't know then. Few did. James and Lily went into hiding when you were born, but they never told us exactly why. Only that Voldemort was targeting them personally. And Sirius Black betrayed their location. Lupin's expression became troubled. That's what we all believed for 12 years. But there have been developments. New evidence suggesting Sirius might have been framed. That the real traitor was Peter Pettigrew. Harry set down his tea, stunned. What? But I thought Pettigrew was dead, killed by Black along with those muggles. We thought so too, Lupin said. But last year, Pettigrew was discovered alive, having spent 12 years hiding as a rat. He was an animagus, like your father. Unfortunately, he escaped before he could be questioned officially. And Black? Escaped Azkaban prison last year, the first ever to do so. He was recaptured, but escaped again during his transfer to receive the Dementor's kiss. He's in hiding now. Lupin leaned forward. Harry, if Sirius is innocent as we now suspect, that means your godfather never betrayed your parents. He loved you like a son. Harry's mind raced. If he's innocent, why hasn't he been pardoned? Given a proper trial? Politics, Lupin said grimly. The Ministry of Magic invested 12 years in portraying him as Voldemort's right-hand man. Admitting their mistake now, especially with Voldemort's return, would cause panic and undermine their authority. So an innocent man remains a fugitive while the real traitor runs free, Harry concluded, anger coloring his voice. Typical government corruption. Lupin looked surprised, then smiled slightly. You sound like your guardian. Geralt doesn't seem to hold much respect for authority. Authority should be earned, not assumed, Harry quoted, one of Geralt's frequent lessons. A wise philosophy, Lupin acknowledged. I'm telling you this because Sirius wants to meet you. If you're willing. Harry's eyebrows shot up. He's here. Near Hogwarts? Not yet, but he could be. He's been in hiding abroad, but when he heard you'd finally returned to the wizarding world. Lupin shrugged. Nothing could keep him away. He wants to see the godson he lost 13 years ago. Harry considered this. Meeting his godfather, a man who had known his parents intimately, who might have raised him if fate had turned differently, was tempting. But caution, drilled into him by years of Witcher training, made him hesitate. I'd need to discuss it with Geralt and Ciri first, he said finally. And I'd want to hear Black's story from his own lips before making any judgments. Of course, Lupin agreed. I wouldn't expect anything less. I'll arrange it if you decide you want the meeting. As Harry left Lupin's office, his mind swam with new information. His godfather possibly innocent. A traitor still at large. And somewhere out there, a fully restored Voldemort planning his next move. He was so distracted that he nearly collided with a girl coming around the corner, her arms full of books. Sorry, they exclaimed simultaneously, the girl stumbling backwards as Harry instinctively steadied her with Witcher-quick reflexes. You're fast, she observed, brown eyes widening slightly as she took in his appearance, the leather armor visible beneath his open robe, the wolf medallion, the long hair. You must be the transfer student Professor McGonagall mentioned. I'm Hermione Granger, fourth-year prefect. Harry, he replied, deliberately omitting his surname. I thought students weren't arriving until next week. Prefects come early to help prepare, she explained, shifting her books to offer a handshake. Professor McGonagall said you're joining fourth year. That's my year. Harry shook her hand briefly. Something like that. Hermione seemed about to ask more questions when shouts and a loud crash echoed from down the corridor. They both turned to see several floating water balloons pelting a caretaker who was shaking his fist at a cackling, translucent figure hovering near the ceiling. Peeves. Hermione huffed. Honestly, he does this every year. Excuse me, I should help Mr. Filch before Peeves floods the entire corridor. She hurried toward the commotion, leaving Harry to continue to his quarters, thoughtful. His first interaction with a Hogwarts student had been normal. No recognition, no awe at meeting the famous Harry Potter. Just a brief, ordinary exchange. Maybe maintaining his cover identity would be possible after all. The night before the welcoming feast, as Harry was preparing for bed, an urgent knock came at the door of their quarters. Geralt, who had been cleaning his silver sword, answered it to find Professor McGonagall looking uncharacteristically flustered. There's been an attack, she said without preamble. At the Quidditch World Cup. Death Eaters, Voldemort's followers. Harry and Ciri immediately joined them at the door. Casualties? Ciri asked sharply. Several injured, none killed, thankfully. But they left, a sign. McGonagall's lips thinned to a white line. The dark mark. It hasn't been seen in 13 years. They're announcing his return, Harry concluded grimly. Making a public statement. The headmaster requests your presence immediately, McGonagall said. There have been developments. They followed her swiftly through the castle to Dumbledore's office, where they found not only the headmaster but also Lupin and a large black dog that growled softly when they entered. "Ah, good, you're here," Dumbledore said, rising from behind his desk. "I apologize for the late hour, but events are moving more quickly than anticipated." The attack was a diversion, Lupin explained. While the Ministry was dealing with the chaos at the World Cup, someone broke into the Department of Mysteries. "What's the Department of Mysteries?" Harry asked. "A secret division of the Ministry that studies the fundamental nature of magic," Dumbledore replied. "Including prophecies." Harry's blood ran cold. "The prophecy about me and Voldemort?" "Yes," Dumbledore nodded gravely. "The original record was stored there. Now it's gone." "So Voldemort knows the full prophecy now," Geralt concluded. "It appears so. Which means he knows the importance of confronting you personally, Harry." Dumbledore sighed heavily. "I had hoped for more time to prepare you." The black dog suddenly transformed into a gaunt, dark-haired man with haunted eyes but an intense, lively expression. Harry tensed, hand moving toward his sword, but Lupin stepped forward. "Harry, this is Sirius Black. Your godfather." Sirius approached slowly, eyes drinking in the sight of Harry. "You look so like James," he said, voice hoarse with emotion. "But you fight like no wizard I've ever seen." "I'm not just a wizard," Harry replied, relaxing slightly but remaining alert. "I'm a witcher too." "So I've heard," Sirius smiled faintly. "Raised by monster hunters from another dimension." James would have thought that was brilliant. "You're supposed to be a fugitive," Ciri noted. "Being at Hogwarts is risky." "I had to come," Sirius said simply, eyes still fixed on Harry. "With Voldemort moving openly now, you're in danger. I failed you once by going after Pettigrew instead of protecting you. I won't fail again." "We're getting off track," Geralt interrupted. "The attack, the prophecy theft, what does this mean for immediate security?" Dumbledore returned to the matter at hand. "We believe Voldemort will attempt to lure Harry into a confrontation on his terms. The theft of the prophecy is likely the first step in a larger plan. But we have an advantage," Lupin added. "They don't know exactly what Harry has become. They expect the boy who lived, a wizard trained in traditional magic. Not a witcher with combat experience. We should use that," Harry said thoughtfully. "Let them underestimate me. Maintain the cover identity as long as possible." "Precisely," Dumbledore agreed. "Which is why tomorrow's sorting ceremony is still important. You'll be introduced as Harry of Rivia, a transfer student from a distant magical tradition. Only the staff will know your true identity." They discussed security arrangements for the coming term late into the night. Sirius would remain at Hogwarts in his animagus form, posing as Lupin's pet dog. Additional magical protections would be placed around the castle. Harry would continue his specialized training while maintaining the appearance of a normal student. As they finally returned to their quarters, Geralt placed a hand on Harry's shoulder. "Are you ready for this? Tomorrow, you step onto a stage you never asked for." Harry thought about everything that had brought him to this point, his parents' murder, the years of abuse at the Dursleys, his rescue and training at Kaer Morhen, and now the prophecy drawing him inexorably toward a confrontation with Voldemort. "No," he admitted. "But I'll do it anyway. That's what witchers do, right? Face the monsters that need facing, whether we're ready or not." Geralt's mouth quirked in a half-smile. "Right. Get some sleep. Tomorrow will be interesting." The Great Hall of Hogwarts was a magnificent sight, its enchanted ceiling reflecting the clear night sky, thousands of candles floating in the air, for long tables filled with students in black robes. At the far end, the staff table overlooked the scene, with Dumbledore at its center in resplendent purple robes. Harry stood with the nervous first years, feeling ridiculously tall and out of place among the 11-year-olds. He'd compromised on his appearance, wearing the standard Hogwarts robes over his leather armor, his silver sword left behind in their quarters but his wand and silver dagger concealed on his person. His wolf medallion remained visible, drawing curious glances from the students. "When I call your name, you will put on the hat and sit on the stool to be sorted," Professor McGonagall announced to the first years, standing beside a three-legged stool with the ancient sorting hat upon it. The sorting began, each nervous child stepping forward when called, placing the hat on their head, and being assigned to one of the 4 houses amid cheers from their new housemates. Harry watched the procedure with interest, noting the different reactions at each table. Gryffindor seemed the loudest and most exuberant, Ravenclaw the most thoughtfully appreciative, Hufflepuff the most warmly welcoming, and Slytherin the most reserved and calculating. Finally, after the last first year, Whitby, Kevin, had been sorted into Hufflepuff, Dumbledore rose. "Before we begin our excellent feast, we have one more student to welcome," he announced. "A rare occurrence at Hogwarts, a transfer student joining us for 4th year. May I introduce Harry of Rivia, who comes to us from a distant magical tradition." Whispers erupted across the hall as all eyes turned to Harry. He stepped forward, maintaining the confident posture Geralt had drilled into him, back straight, movements fluid, expression composed. McGonagall gestured to the stool. "Mr. Rivia, if you would." Harry sat and placed the ancient hat on his head. Immediately, a small voice spoke in his ear. Well, what have we here?" "Harry Potter, at last." "But not the Harry Potter I expected to sort all those years ago, no indeed. You've been changed by your upbringing, shaped into something quite extraordinary." "Can they hear you?" Harry thought, concerned about his identity being revealed. No, only you can hear me," the hat assured him. "Now, where to put you? You've the courage of Gryffindor, certainly. The mind for Ravenclaw too. Loyalty enough for Hufflepuff. And ambition and resourcefulness that would serve you well in Slytherin. I don't really care which house," Harry thought. "I'm here for a purpose, not to join a club." "Ah, but houses are more than clubs, Mr. Potter, or Rivia, as you prefer. They're family, tradition, support systems. And you, with your unique background and the challenges ahead, will need allies." The hat seemed to ponder. "The Witcher training has given you cunning, strategic thinking, pragmatism, perhaps Slytherin." Harry frowned. "I heard Voldemort was in Slytherin." "He was, yes. But do not judge a house by one member, no matter how infamous. Still, I see your father's courage in you, and your mother's fierce protective instinct. Better make it Gryffindor." The last word was shouted aloud. The Gryffindor table erupted in cheers as Harry removed the hat and made his way toward them. He took a seat next to Hermione Granger, who smiled in recognition. "Welcome to Gryffindor," she said warmly. "This is Ron Weasley," she added, gesturing to a tall, red-haired boy across the table. "Bloody hell, you're tall for a 4th year," Ron commented, eyeing Harry's build. "And what's that around your neck? Some kind of magic detector?" "Something like that," Harry replied, fingering his wolf medallion. "It vibrates near magical threats." "Wicked," Ron grinned. "So what's this distant magical tradition Dumbledore mentioned? You don't sound foreign." "It's complicated," Harry said, giving the prepared answer. "I was raised by monster hunters who use a different kind of magic than wizards do." "Monster hunters?" A sandy-haired boy nearby perked up. "Like, actual monsters? Dragons and such?" "Among other things," Harry nodded, helping himself to food as the feast appeared on the table. "My guardian, Geralt, is actually joining the staff this year, working with Professor Hagrid on Kaer of magical creatures." This prompted an excited buzz of conversation around him. Harry found himself fielding questions about witchers, monsters, and his unconventional education throughout dinner. He answered carefully, sticking to the cover story while sharing genuine information about witcher techniques. "So you actually use swords along with magic?" a boy named Dean Thomas asked, fascinated. "That's brilliant. Why don't wizards do that?" Different traditions, Harry shrugged. Witchers learn to fight physically because some monsters are resistant to certain types of magic. Is that medallion a Witcher thing too? Hermione asked, eyeing it with scholarly interest. Yes, Harry confirmed. All Witchers wear one. They're enchanted to detect magical dangers. As the feast continued, Harry observed the staff table. Geralt sat next to an enormous, wild-looking man who could only be Hagrid, the two appearing to be deep in conversation about something that involved enthusiastic hand gestures from the larger man. Ciri was engaged in discussion with a tiny professor Harry recognized as Flitwick. And at the far end, Professor Snape watched Harry with undisguised suspicion. After the feast, Dumbledore rose to make announcements, including the introduction of new staff members. First, please welcome Professor Geralt of Rivia, who will be assisting Professor Hagrid with some of our more challenging magical creatures. Geralt stood briefly, acknowledging the curious applause with a curt nod before resuming his seat. Additionally, Lady Cyrilla will be joining our Ancient Runes department as a special consultant on interdimensional magical theory. Ciri's introduction received particular interest from the Ravenclaw table, where students who took the elective subject whispered excitedly. Dumbledore continued with other announcements, most significantly that Hogwarts would host an event called the Triwizard Tournament, a magical competition between 3 European wizarding schools. The tournament was discontinued centuries ago due to the high death toll, Dumbledore explained, causing murmurs of shock and excitement. However, this year it has been revived with new safety measures. Only students who are of age, that is, 17 or older, may submit their names for consideration. This announcement caused an uproar among the younger students, particularly the Weasley twins seated near Harry, who protested vociferously. As they were dismissed to their dormitories, Harry hung back, catching Geralt's eye. The Witcher nodded slightly. They would meet later to discuss this unexpected development. Harry followed the Gryffindors to their tower, where he discovered he'd been assigned a bed in the fourth-year boys' dormitory, sharing with Ron Weasley, Neville Longbottom, Dean Thomas, and Seamus Finnegan. So, Ron said as they unpacked, Monster Hunter, huh? Got any good stories? Harry smiled, relaxing slightly. A few. Ever heard of a Bruxa? Vampire-like creature, can turn invisible and has a sonic scream that can rupture your eardrums. As he shared a carefully edited version of his first Bruxa hunt with Geralt, Harry realized that for the first time, he was interacting with people his own age as equals, not as the boy who lived, not as the Witcher's unusual apprentice, but just as Harry. It felt good. Later that night, after his dorm mates had fallen asleep, Harry slipped out to meet Geralt and Ciri in their private quarters. This tournament complicates things, Geralt said without preamble. It means additional security concerns, foreign visitors, more opportunities for infiltration. Or for Voldemort to make a move under cover of the chaos, Ciri added. Harry nodded. My medallion hasn't stopped vibrating since we got here. There's magic everywhere, but it makes it harder to detect specific threats. We'll need to be vigilant, Geralt concluded. Especially around the tournament activities. What do you think of your housemates? Ciri asked, changing the subject. Harry considered this. They seem decent. Curious about me, but accepting. The cover story is holding for now. Don't get too comfortable, Geralt warned. Remember why we're here. I know, Harry assured him. Voldemort. The prophecy. He touched his scar absently. But having allies here isn't a bad thing. Witchers work alone, but I'm not just a Witcher. Geralt's expression softened slightly. No, you're not. Just be careful who you trust. As Harry made his way back to Gryffindor Tower under cover of a disillusionment charm, he reflected on the strange dual life he was now living, Witcher and Wizard, Harry of Rivia and Harry Potter, student and prophesied savior. The coming months would test him in ways his training at Kaer Morhen never could. But for the first time, facing the destiny created by his scar felt like a choice rather than an obligation. He wasn't returning to the wizarding world as a victim seeking revenge, but as a witcher answering a contract, a monster hunter facing the greatest monster of all. And like every contract, he would prepare, plan, and execute with precision. After all, that's what Geralt had taught him. In the end, even the most fearsome monster can be defeated if you know its weaknesses and are willing to pay the price. As Harry slipped back into his dormitory, his medallion suddenly vibrated more intensely against his chest. He froze, senses alert, scanning the darkened room. Nothing seemed amiss, his dormmate slept peacefully, the windows were secure, no unusual magic disturbed the air. Yet the medallion continued to pulse against his skin, warning of danger nearby. Interesting, Harry whispered to himself. Very interesting. The end. Thank you for watching this video. Please be sure to subscribe to our channel and like this video.